Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Stacey Varghese, and I'm the Director of Leadership Annual Giving and Engagement at St. John's University. Today, we have Christine Salboudis, who will speak on understanding company culture. Some housekeeping rules before we begin. If you have a question, please submit it on the bottom right in the Q&A section to panelists and host, and they will be answered at the end of the presentation. Also, a recording of this webinar will be available to you on the Alumni Professional Development page on the university site. Now, I'm excited to introduce our speaker. Chris Salboudis, founder of Philo4Thought, Inc., a premier mentoring group, is now present. Chris is a CPD certified life coach with specialties in work-life balance, career, relationship building strategies, and mindfulness. She holds the rank of adjunct assistant professor at 2 universities in New York, including St. John's University, where she has taught a variety of courses in philosophy, literature, composition, and environmental. Welcome, Chris. I will hand the webinar controls over to you now.
Thanks, Stacey. Hi, everyone. I'm Chris Salboudis, and today we're going to chat a little bit about the importance of understanding company culture. This webinar will be helpful to those who are currently looking to strengthen their place within an organization or to identify whether an organization is a good fit for them before applying for a place there. While our focus today will be on professional groups, it can also apply to those who are looking to join social groups as well. I'd like to start with a word from a great inspiration to me, Socrates. While Socrates can be a difficult historical figure to follow because he was rather overly passionate about his convictions, he's known for his most famous philosophical concept, gonouthi staphon, which is an ancient Greek expression for know yourself. Before we talk about joining a new community, it's important to take a long and honest look at yourself to determine the types of organizations that are good for you. I say this because oftentimes a person feels a sense of desperation about applying for a job or joining a new group, and they bring themselves to places that aren't a good match for them. A business is both an economic and human entity, which means that building a solid, sustainable foundation for a company, particularly in today's competitive global market, requires an engaging and didactic company culture. If you apply to join for a group or company that challenges you and will push you to hone and improve your skills, find a complementary resource, etc., then that's great. However, if the thing you're thinking of joining has an opposing philosophy that goes against the core values that you embrace, then it's not a good match for you. Authenticity is a key factor to successful integration into a company's culture. No employer or teammate enjoys working with a fake sort of person, a poser, or someone who is constantly nervous about fitting in because it's a drain on team productivity. While it's okay to feel a little nervous in the face of a team challenge, it's not healthy for you to work in a place where you feel that the main challenge is maintaining a fake persona on a regular basis. Stacey, I think we're going to the slide that says, what is company culture? That's the next one after this one. Thank you. So what is company culture? It basically refers to shared values, goals, attitudes, and practices of the members of an organization. In part, it's about the founding values of the company, the mission and goals of the company, the reason it exists, etc. The company's core. So what is core? It's also a reflection of the individuals who are hired to build, support, and propagate the mission. In uniting towards the common goal, employees and managers cultivate a community of traditions, strategies, and so on based on the individual skills and specialized functions of the individual. Okay, so C in core represents culture, character, confidence, courage, creativity, okay? Culture is what reinforces the underlying strategies of every organization, department, division, subgroup, and individual in 2 ways, from the top down as well as from the bottom up, which we'll discuss in a moment. If strategy is poorly conceived or orchestrated, then a company risks losing its advantageous resources and positioning in the marketplace. An organization's process for crafting its own culture differs from place to place and team to team. The O in core represents optimism, openness, originality, and organization. The R in core represents repetition, resilience, resolve, and resourcefulness. And the E in core represents education, encouragement, engagement, and environment. Honestly, there's no sense in applying for a job if it's not well suited for you. A professional community is like a second family, just like St. John's University is my second family. It's important to know in advance whether you'll be happy, fulfilled, and appreciated in a place. Because it will require a majority of your time, energy, and resources, it's important to get a sense of the mission and value of the establishment, the managerial infrastructure, and the team or office dynamics, and so on. You'll be spending a lot of time with people here, which is a significant personal and professional investment. You'll be expected to share the skills and resources that make you valuable to the group, division, department, and organization that you're looking to join. These creative, technical, and administrative abilities are what make you an asset to the company. However, you must also remember that it's a two-way street and that the company must also be an asset to you. You'll be dedicating a lot of time to meeting projected deadlines and goals, so it's essential that you believe in the activities that you're performing and in the people that you're working with. You'll be identified as a member of the company, which becomes a part of your personal and professional identity. This is perhaps the most important one because when you lend your name to an organization, you're linking yourself to their mission. People will count on you as a representation of the company's values and qualities. For these reasons and more, it's important to know the reputation and goals of the organization to which you're preparing to connect yourself. So now let's chat a bit more about understanding company mission, values, and goals. Since the webinar is hosted by St. John's University, which follows a Vincentian mission that's very easy to understand for all those who are attending, let's continue with St. John's as an example. At St. John's, we have a clear mission that makes it really easy to identify the central goals and core values of every office, program, and activity emanating from the campus. Everyone is hired or admitted to the St. John's community and is expected to adhere to these value systems and act in accordance to the fulfillment of the Vincentian mission, which serves as a map to everyone on campus, the whole SJU family, regardless of their professional or academic rank and affiliation to the campus. It's this golden standard by which the entire global campus functions. And of course, to maintain the value of this mission, those in non-compliance are expected to face consequences. Looking outside of the St. John's community, however, most professionals know that not every organization has such a clear-cut mission. As a result, team and department leaders who might not see eye to eye on the purpose and approach to meeting the company mission might engage in activities that go against the company motto, not on purpose, sometimes it's just accidental. Having a lack of focus in this area creates undue strain on the members of the organization, particularly in the 21st century. For example, one facility has a motto rather than a mission. The motto is opportunitas, which is Latin for opportunity. And the motto seems deceptively simple because it's unclear in actuality what ethical standards the members of this organization are expected to follow, which creates pockets of chaos and confusion across the company. When looking for a company to join, it's therefore essential to make sure that the goals and values of the company are clear, ethically sound, sustainable across all divisions, and attainable to all members. It's also important that the mission be vital, desirable, and necessary in the world today, which keeps the members of the company engaged and happy to be associated with the organization. Next, it's important for you to understand the clear chain of command and the managerial style of the people you're working for. Understand who it is that you report to. Know who you report to for annual reviews, as well as monthly, weekly, and day-to-day assignments. Next, what is the person's managerial style? The person who's managing you, what's their style? Is the person a micromanager where they're overly watchful and heavily involved in every task? Or are they a very laissez-faire manager, very minimally watchful and trusting of the team to understand every task and complete it? Or are they that kind of idea creative person who is very big on generating ideas, but really, really not good at implementing the vision? Or are they a deficient manager where they're missing key skills and hiring staffers to fill the gaps? Or are they a flighty manager where they're never really in one place at one time, but demanding perfection in everything without completing their explanations or outlining expectations or anything specific? As you can imagine, working for any of these is a very different experience. So it's important to know who you're preparing to work for before you apply for or start a job. For those of you who are applying to management positions and have to deal with other managers who have different styles than you do, it's important to build a professional empathy and rapport amongst the different departments without unexpectedly getting in like the gutter sludge from one department coming to muck your department up. Creating a cultural tradition with new peers at this level can take a bit of work, but see if there's a monthly or weekly launch or an activity that the managers partake in so that you can start to understand your peers and interact with them on a social level and then build your way up to a real rapport at the professional level. Managing a team requires an engaging personality and a strategic vision that has been discussed in a variety of my Philo4Thought workshops. Understanding how to speak with a manager when you're a member of a team, however, is something we'll address in the next few slides because it's a trick called managing up, which we'll discuss later and that I discuss at length in another workshop. Next, peer-to-peer dynamics can be a challenge, especially if you're new to an organization. It's essential to understand that even if you're a part of a small focus group, everyone has a different functional style. To successfully contribute to your team, it's important to identify each person's top skills, major shortcomings, and areas of common acceleration or interest. A simple way to determine these things is with a short assessment test. Many companies rely on one that's called the DISC assessment. I could run a free version for Philo4Thought members and a low-cost version for non-members, but I also believe that St. John's University Career Center also offers DISC assessment for free to students and perhaps for new graduates as well. You're welcome to contact the St. John's Career Center to find out more. I'm also happy to help those who would like an assessment run through Philo4Thought. This also applies to company and client dynamics, in the sense that the company representative has to cater to the client at a specific point before deciding whether or not to have the bandwidth to deal with a client, which we'll talk about also in a moment. The goal in understanding dynamics at each of these levels is to find out whether you are a good match for the particular type of team and job, and to determine the best way to work as a unified group towards a common goal. There are some difficult and challenging situations where some teams work in close quarters or very open spaces with very little private or personal space, while other teams allow for heavy privacy because the team is handling confidential or financial or personal material. Some team leaders will publicly call out a teammate and put the person on the spot for an answer, while others will privately email the teammate to ask them to start thinking about a concept or issue before bringing it up at a meeting or project discussion. Some teams expect everyone to be on call 24/7, while others follow a strict start and end time. It's up to you to suss out which ones you're comfortable dealing with. Don't try to change the team in its entirely just because you don't prefer a certain style, especially if you're the new person. Rather, learn to see what each person's positive and negative traits are so that you can maximize on team potential and work around the things that you don't really find compatible with your own style until you're able to develop a nice medium between the converging styles. The silver lining mentality and positive engagement are key to success here. Take the time to make an affirming comment. Compliment your coworker on his or her strength. If there's a task you know that they do better than you do, mention it frankly that you're planning to complete the task this way, but you want to check in with them to see if perhaps they have a better strategy or approach. That's one of the nicest things that you can do to try and start building a team community. Always thank the person and offer to return the favor if they need help with something that you excel in. Stay positive and productive at all times. As we said earlier, it's helpful to understand the range of people you're working with, but it's just as essential to know the precise range of your own skills, your bandwidth, your personality and values and goals. Be honest with yourself when you're considering this. For example, I have a very dear friend and colleague who's an amazing creative person, but only works from home due to an anxiety issue. The person knows this about himself and so only applies for certain types of jobs with specific types of benefits that allow him to tend to his work and family very fully, and then also separately to address his anxiety issues properly. In other words, he is able to unlock his professional and personal productive potential because he's honest with himself about his limitations and his strengths. I have another friend, meanwhile, whose strength is being front and center, the ambassador or MC or spokesperson for any task, but he isn't great at smaller tasks like bookkeeping and team building and the behind the scenes stuff. So typically his teammates put him in a position where he's the spokesperson while other members of the team handle managerial tasks and behind the scenes issues. And the team works really great. Most of us fall somewhere in between these two examples, but the point is to know your own range. What will allow you to flourish? Okay, what will cause you to burn out, to quit the job, to start feeling anxious? You have to understand yourself. You have to know yourself, as we said in the opening slide. We all have transferable skills that we bring to a job, but we don't always know how we are expected to apply them to a new position. And that's in part because we don't fully comprehend our own value. Sometimes you have to make a few internal changes in the team and set up a learning curve, a personal one to hone your own skills and a professional one for the team. These can be fun team projects, retreats, or structured webinars, meetings, etc. Other times, it's important to draw the line and declare that you're unable to provide services past a specific point. In these instances, be firm, but be kind. Don't fall into the square peg trap, which, if you don't know what a square peg is, there used to be an example where we had, as kids, these boards that had different shapes, and one would be a circle, but the peg that was remaining was a square, okay? So don't fall into the square peg trap, which is a situation where you have convinced yourself that even though you know that you're not a good fit for the position that you're applying for or that you accept in any way, you take it anyway, and you end up getting stuck and unhappy. Oftentimes, a person will apply for a job out of desperation and make themselves infinitely flexible just because they need the money or they need the status or they need to pay off a college loan. And I get that. While this may help solve a financial issue in the present, trying to shove a square peg into a round slot does not tend to work in the long run. Be honest with yourself about the range and flexibility you're willing to explore to get and keep your job. Next, we'll talk about the importance of a positive professional identity. Stacey, I think we've lagged behind with the slideshow. Thank you. I had the benefit of having a lot of different mentors over the past 30 years, and I'll share the best practices, the best piece of information from my favorite and then my one worst mentor, okay? One of the favorite expressions is to be present by Dr. Thomas O'Sullivan. Another one is not to let fear or stereotypes stop you, which is from Dr. Arthur Ginelli, former director of the St. John's Honors Program and chairperson of the philosophy department for as long as I can remember back when I was a student. Another piece of advice is from another St. John's professor, Dr. Zoe Protorpoulou, which is, if you try to do and know everything at once, you will end up doing and learning nothing, which I follow this one to this day. And then the bit of advice from my worst mentor is that appearance is everything. And this is what we're going to talk about more in this slide, because you can't be obsessed with appearance. However, a lot of people judge you based on aspects of your appearance. So we'll talk about this for a moment. The combination of mentors that I've had led to my silver lining philosophy, which centers around every action contributing to the construction of a robust and productive positive professional identity as an individual, a member of a team, and a community leader. No matter where I go and what campus I'm on, it's the positive professional identity and my own reputation as an authentic person that carries through from place to place. So there are 5 important points we're going to talk about on this slide. The first one is this concept of body language and appearance, the direct way that you present yourself to others. It's the topic of another webinar that I have, but in general, when you have an open body language and appearance, you are approachable to other people. Whereas if you have a closed off body language, or you look like you're always stressed, people pick up on that and they stop coming to you for things, they stop approaching you for things, or worse, they'll take advantage of your stress and try to maximize on it by giving you too much until you feel burnt out and overstressed. The concept of approachability and presence is one of a humble confidence that you come in. And I'm going to go on a small tangent this one, because I have to say, I love 2 things about my students. I love the students who are quiet and know a lot and come to the classroom and say 1 or 2 focused things. But I also love the confident students who come in, and even if they didn't do all the work, they come in confident. They look like they're ready, and they just really winging it very well sometimes, and sometimes not so well. We won't talk about that. But the idea of being approachable, of being present in the moment when the action is taking place, and being confident but not cocky is essential here, okay? Next, we're going to talk about substance, because if you have nothing to say, you have to be silent. You can't just make noise. I had a favorite teacher who loved to say, empty barrels make the most noise, whenever we talked during class time. And we see this type of person all the time, the person who has all the flair but has no skill, the person who's really loud but has nothing important to say. Don't ever be that person. You want to be the person who has something to say and knows when to speak, then when to be silent. In some industries, it's also called strategic communication, which connects with the next point about using lingo that's common to specific industry or organization. While most times we come into a company with professional lingo about databases and protocols that are common within an industry, company or community lingo can also be a very particular in specific organizations. Check out the key abbreviations or anecdotes and slang that are used in a company. This is usually something that's developed over time, not really learned overnight. Okay, so that's an important thing to note. Don't get anxious and worked up about not knowing all the lingo. You're going to develop it over time, and that's when you know you're joining the family, you're part of the family. This is more for people who have now been accepted into the group or have experience with similar groups. For example, at Philo4Thought, our team uses the expression HYP as a keyword to advertise academic programs and activities designed for Hellenic young professionals, HYP. While we initially had to use the full term back in 2009 when we started, now all of our affiliates jointly use the abbreviation HYP on all our advertising and social media posts and hashtags, because people are familiar now with this term HYP. Next, one of my favorite American authors, Robert Frost, once wrote, good fences make good neighbors. But as my students will tell you, I'm more of an Aristotelian thinker. So for me, it's more about the combination of authenticity and substance, strategy, and empathy, or in short, the very simple ethos, logos, pathos of Aristotle. Maintaining a positive professional identity is just a matter of creating good habits in work and in life, which is also an Aristotelian concept. Next, it's great to walk into a room feeling confident because you know your personal and professional value and understand what an asset you will be to the group or company that you're looking to join. I've worked for a lot of different places since I was a new graduate, and some recruited me heavily while others I approached or was selected for a position, either faculty or administrative. A few of the experiences were unexpectedly less than stellar, but I stuck with them to gain experience since I was brand new to the workforce. Some places had very lax management and a gaggle of controlling secretaries, while others had top-heavy management and very few workers at my level to execute the daily tasks. Some had managers with outdated strategies, while others had managers who were technologically really advanced, but didn't really engage in team building, recognition, or affirmation. So we had to navigate through different types of jobs here. Finally, as I started making a name for myself as a reputable person in education and philanthropy, I landed 3 amazing posts that I really, really love. All 3 allow me to put my creative, academic, and administrative experience to use. A few are leadership positions, but others are just community outreach in the trenches of daily life amongst marginalized communities, which I also love. All 3 of these jobs are structured in a way that I can set up a comfortable routine that suits me and allows me to work with many amazing people. The initial journey was a little rough due to the cultural mismatches or based on lax core values leading to toxic or dysfunctional work environments. But in the end, I have no regrets because these experiences taught me as a manager or instructor the things that I never want to be, while showing me also the qualities that I do really value and reinforced me on like my abilities on like how to be a good colleague, manager, supervisor, or client as well. So now I'd like to circle back for a moment to point something out. While each community experience I've just described was vastly different from the other, they all hired and retained me for a very long period of time. So what was the common thread? It's that each of them needed the skills that I personally brought to the table. Okay, which brings me to the next 5 points. First, know the value of the skills you're bringing into the company. Next, know the value of the energy that you're bringing into the company. Then, know the value of your degree and your training. Also, your assets are your strongest bargaining chip. Finally, don't go in with a chip on your shoulder. Okay, bargaining chip, yes. Chip on your shoulder, no. No one needs all the attitude. Okay, be a realistic person, but also stay humble. In the end, it's up to you to choose where you will invest your time and resources. I strongly recommend that you research a company before applying to see whether you'll find the company or the group to be a potential mismatch to the point that it's not worth your time to join or apply to the group. Which brings me back to my original motto on being authentic. There is a great book on authenticity by a friend of mine, Sky Cleary, which Stacey and I can add to the chat for those who are interested. Stacey, I have the link that we can post after the slideshow. It's a publication called How to Be Authentic, Simone de Beauvoir and the Quest for Fulfillment by St. Martin's Press from 2022. The book's available on Amazon. It's also available as a podcast for those who prefer a podcast version. Last but not least, my group, Philo4Thought, will be launching a podcast next month. It's a series called Besmu, which is Greek for tell me. We're going to start off with monthly talks on different empowerment topics. If you have a topic you'd like to hear more about, let us know in the chat, or you can also email me at p4tinfo@gmail.com. For those who are interested, we can also make a short self-evaluation sheet available to you after this event to help you determine whether or not you're a good fit for a particular company. It's also a good tool for those who are undecided majors and looking for some verification of what majors would be suitable for them. Okay, so thanks for listening, everyone, and happy holidays. I'm going to pass the mic back to you, Stacey, and thanks for having me on your program.
Thank you, Chris. I do see some questions that came in.
Okay.
First, how does company culture affect the individual employee's work ethic?
Okay, so it really shouldn't work that way. It really shouldn't be the company culture influencing the person's work ethic. The person should have a work ethic. Sometimes, though, with younger students who are taking an internship and don't know like work ethic basics, for example, time management, coming in on time, and this sort of thing, it's a good way to build structure if you're a first-time employee or if you're an intern and you're looking to gain some concept. But if you're an experienced person and you have your work ethic and your work ethic is a certain way, you should be looking for a job that matches your work ethic.
If you are part of a company and the new manager is hired and there is a problem, who would you turn to for help and how would you bring it up and what would you say?
So that tends to be an HR related topic because sometimes it is hard to have a new manager, and we've had situations like that where we've had like a new manager, the new manager doesn't have the same standards as the previous person who everyone got used to, and people tend to grumble and a lot of people leave, and I've seen this happen a lot of times, and some places honestly I've left because of that kind of situation. However, the proper phase to go through is first speak to your direct report. So if that's not your direct report, okay, speak first to your direct report and see what your direct report is doing to address the situation. Okay, if your direct report is the person who you're talking about, then you have to go to HR. It also depends what the problem is. So I can't really speak to like how, like what you would say, because it depends on what the problem is. So for example, if it's a major issue, like a Title IX issue, that's one set of things that you have to bring up to HR and possibly to a Title IX subdivision. But if it's something that's you're not comfortable with the person because of their style of management, you could possibly do something that is called managing up, which I do talk about in another video, which is basically you're working with your manager gradually to make suggestions until you both are on par with each other, your managerial style.
Going back to positive professional identity,
Mhm.
what should you do when you have anxiety and feel like you can't have positive body language, and how to make yourself unapproachable?
Okay, so there are instances where everybody, even the most positive person, has like closed off body language because everyone does feel stress. It's part of the human nature to feel stress at certain points of in time, or like if you're unwell and you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I wish I was home with a blanket, but you're at the office because my goodness, that's what you have to be. There are different responses. Like if you know, okay, this is my trigger and I'm not feeling this moment right now, it's causing anxiety, you have to start creating a positive response for yourself where you step back a moment, even if it's just for a moment. You can excuse yourself, take a moment to step back. What I do is I put my head down instead of facing forward to a person. Like I take a moment, I put my head down and I silently count to 5. 5 is my number. Okay, I count to 5. By the time I have counted to 5, I have lost the anxiety, I have lost the sharp thing that maybe I want to say. Okay, and I'm more capable of responding in a positive way. Okay, it's not easy to do when you're first doing it. It's not always the easiest thing to do because sometimes you do like respond whatever's coming onto your your first response. But as you practice it, it becomes easier to do.
How do you figure out what skills you would need for a certain task or job? And do I figure it out? If I do figure it out, will it flourish the environment I'm set in?
That's a good question. I love this question. So basically, um, when you are looking for a job, the job should have a description that indicates what skills are required and what skills are preferred. Based on the list of required and preferred skills that are indicated, you should have at least a very basic sense of what skills are needed. Okay, you could get an additional sense of it by what's the expression? By researching basically the website, the page about the company to learn more about the company culture. All right. And you get a sense from that. Now, you're not necessarily going to have every single skill down like 100%, but be honest with yourself about which skills you have that are already developed, that are already strong, and which ones you could do like a LinkedIn workshop to build up on before your interview. That way you can say, well, I'm just starting to learn more about this. However, I'm willing to learn. I'm looking forward to learning more about it when I'm hired. You
What
see,
are some methods used to resolve conflict in a company?
that's a very complicated question because you would have to know the specific company. So each company handles things differently. However, in the US, most companies have a human resources person, so the human resources deals with the problems. You report to human resources, and human resources uh, sorts it through their subdivisions, and then you address it with them.
If you were to give one piece of advice to someone going into an interview for a job they really want, what would you suggest?
So also it depends on the job. However, in general, when you walk in, make sure that you're not wearing something that makes you feel uncomfortable. Make sure that you look sharp, that you're looking your interviewer in the eye, and also that you have a copy of your resume. I know it's the digital age. I know that everybody is digital now, but don't waste your time going like this and searching for something, that may or may not be on your phone, readily available, etc. Okay, have a printed copy with you, give it to the person so they can look at the thing, okay, while they're speaking to you. That way, if they have any questions, they don't say to you the key phrase, well, I'll look over your resume and I'll get back to you, because that usually means that something is off, okay? And it distracts them, and other things are going to distract them during the day. You want to make yourself memorable. You want to be positive. You want to make sure that you have that handshake down, all of those things. Okay.
What are ways in which we can act confident while staying humble?
Okay. So for example, I have a student this semester who smiles. Even if everything is miserable, he walks into the room, he's smiling. Okay. That right away, even if everything is miserable, even if he didn't do his homework, God help us all, right? But he comes in and he's always smiling. And that already shows that he has a positive identity. He has a positive perspective of himself. Okay. And about 50% of the time, that by itself works. Not in my class, you have to do the work. However, in some cases, it does work. And like a lot of times you walk in and your positive personality, it works. It, um, yeah, you have to just radiate confidence. And I know that there are some people who are on the quiet side. You have to practice in the mirror, radiate confidence. What does that look like? What does that look like? Don't put things on that don't flatter you. Don't do things to your face that are extra just because somebody else does it, right? I know a lot of people like fix their face before they go to an interview or a presentation. And what is that? What does that mean? You're making yourself look like somebody else? We don't all belong in, music videos. We're just, here we are. We have to face each other and be, positive. Just positive. Understand that the person next to you is being their natural self, and you also have to be your natural self, authentic. Authenticity is key.
How do managers remotivate employees when objectives have not been achieved?
Okay, so you could do a number of things. The things that work are social engagement projects. So, for example, you could do a summer retreat or a spring retreat or some kind of a holiday luncheon, right? Just to get everybody invigorated, try to get people a little bit out of the workplace. If you're on campus, go to like the faculty house for like a small lunch or something like this. If you're off campus, go to like the local bistro, have something, do something that's social and you know, joke around a little bit with each other. Don't always be so serious, so project oriented. It makes it easier. Those moments make it easier for you to respond to projects in the future as family. It makes it easier to get people to consign to additional training and other things. Okay. You also, if that's not your thing, if the social stuff is not your thing, you can also give an incentive to employees to get extra training. So another thing that works a lot of times is you tell people, okay, if you sign up for this training, you will also get 75% off of your Starbucks through, the campus Starbucks or through the office, you know, uh, what is it called? Petty Cash. You'll get a $75 gift card from Petty Cash or something like this. Give like a monthly incentive so that you have like a raffle or something like this to get people motivated to act. And then after a few of these, you'll see that it becomes natural because you've all grown into a family. It also is a good trick for employee retention. If you have really good team members that you're trying to keep, it's really great for employee retention.
How do you find the balance between cocky and confident without pushing either way and coming off the wrong way?
That's a great question. I love this one. Because you'll see people who, when you see them, you find people who are just, come in and they're strutting and they just kind of, who do you think you are? Where do you think you are? Like, who are you? Beyonce doesn't strut like that. How are you strutting like that? And it's just, I try not to laugh when I see that, honestly, because it's funny. You see someone come in and they just overly cocky, like Superman flying in doesn't come in as cocky as this person. Okay. Wonder Woman with her lassos and it doesn't come in as cocky as this person. Right. So you know when it's too much, right? You know when it's too much. Okay. Um, but basic confidence, you sit up, right? Or you stand straight, okay? And when you give a handshake, you don't give like the wet noodle handshake. You give like a nice firm handshake, okay? When you talk, you're not, mumbling like this in the you're talking, you express yourself. You're not too loud, right? You're not the loudest laugh in the room, but you're also not like the person who's like chuckling quietly, right? You have to get that balance. It's not as complicated as you think. You just have to practice it.
Is it better to stick with an internship that may not suit you for the experience?
If it doesn't suit you, meaning it doesn't follow through with your plan for your next step in your career, then why are you there? It doesn't really make sense to be there because just adding things that are unrelated to your future doesn't really help.
How can I work on work ethics while finding a balance between work life and personal life without the feeling of role constraint?
I'm not sure what role constraint means there.
Role strain.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. Thank you. So basically finding a balance between your personal life and your professional life comes also with practice. At first, it might look like everything is bleeding into your 24-hour day, right? So it's important to make sure that you set a line, like after this hour, I'm not working. This is beyond my work time. Okay. So you have to be strict with that. Otherwise, you don't have time to really breathe or reboot or do you, right? You are not uh like a robot. You're an organic being, which I tell my students all the time as well. You're an organic being. You have like the time that you're supposed to do your professional things, and then the time that you're supposed to be, personal time, family time, etc. And that should be part of everyone's work ethic. Making time for yourself, taking the break when you're supposed to have the lunch break is part of making time for yourself. And sometimes it's hard to do, and it takes practice. right? But once you get into the routine, a trick that I use right now is I rely heavily on my phone to set alarms. So I have the alarm, the start time, I have the alarm, the lunchtime, this is the lunchtime. I have the alarm for when everything is going to like end for the day and the time where I have to really power down. Okay. Um, that way it forces me to get into a routine of balance. Yes.
On average, how long would it take you to improve your work skills and to go higher to a higher position such as manager or someone below the manager?
So it depends on the skill that we're talking about. If it's a substantial skill, it might require a course, right? Or a special certification. If it's a small skill like time management, that's not a small skill. It's an important one. Okay. However, time management is something that you could do on your own and practice until you've got it down pat. You don't need to go take a course on time management. You can just, teach yourself the time management. Um, or if it's something about coding, you could take a small course online without having to like go out to an academy or whatever. But some of the other skills you have to really take maybe a certification course, etc. And I know St. John's offers a lot of certification courses. Another affiliate that I work with is called New Skills Academy, and they offer a lot of great courses that are online with like the kind of Siri automated narration for those who don't like to read, who prefer to hear their lessons. Um, and those are, really good, really reliable, and help you level up to the position that you want.
Would you use this method of company culture as a means of training your newly hired interns or employees for your company or a new program? If so, do you believe that it would be more beneficial to the new hires' work ethic development?
So yes, I have the St. John's family is my thing. Okay. Everybody who comes into the St. John's family is St. John's family member. Okay. And so that's just how I run the show. As soon as you step into my classroom, you're part of the St. John's family, you're part of my St. John's family. And so, we work together. Okay. Similarly with my nonprofit, Philo4Thought, that's how we roll. We're a family. The whole team works as a family together. All of those who come into our network because they're either mentors or they're advisors or they're company coaches or strategic affiliates, they all work themselves in as Philo4Thought family. Those who come to us as clients, they're part of the Philo4Thought family. They get services, while they're billable hours, obviously, but we also give advisement. So not every second of that advisement is a billable hour. And it's the same for teaching. When you go to your advisor, for example, your advisor is not getting paid usually for that time when they're talking to you and giving you advisement, you know? And it's nice to know that there's someone there for you who's not doing it for the money. There's something about that, about this genuine, authentic feeling of having a family member who's got your back, right? Who's not doing it for the paycheck. So yeah, I really do subscribe to this concept of family, not just as an employer, but also as an employee, as an advisor, as a mentor, as a community leader, all of it, all of it.
How do you stay motivated? As a college student, it is quite hard to balance school and work, but with everything going on at work, the environment, how do you keep yourself motivated in the workplace?
So I'll tell you how I stay motivated. Okay, first of all, that involves a lot of coffee, so we won't talk about that because some of you are not coffee drinkers. However, uh, coffee was a big influence there. However, I'll tell you, juggling work and school, I really, really loved school. I loved all my teachers. I loved St. John's so much. I loved the experience. Okay, it wasn't work for me because I loved the stuff that we were talking about. And I always came to class ready and I always came to class with questions and maybe too many questions, it's true. However, it got me to a place where my advisors and my mentors and my teachers all knew who I was, right? And I knew who they were and I understood the responses and I could anticipate what they needed from me and they knew what to expect from me, right? And that was a set thing. I had a reputation just there at St. John's as a student. Meanwhile, in my work, I picked a job that did complement what I was studying. That way it wasn't really work. It was just like a flow, a natural continuation to the next thing, right? My work was like my future. So I was studying stuff and this was my future. And that's as much as possible how really people should set up the connection between academia and professional life. Now, I understand that there's a lot of work-life balance issues right now, especially post-pandemic, because a lot of people are taking school part-time and working full-time to support themselves, to support their families, etc. So it is a challenge, right? But as long as you love both things in a genuine manner, and as long as you have advisors and managers, so advisors in school and managers at work who understand your schedule and support you, it's a challenge, but it's a surmountable challenge. You can do it, right? Like you can do it. It's not like an impossible task. Okay?
Do you have one piece of advice for someone going through a change in job position or promotion? And what would it be?
It depends what the position is. It depends what the promotion is. If it's a promotion within the same thing and you're not going to a different company or a different department, it's really just stay positive. You might get some competition once you level up, okay? So just stay positive, let things flow off your back like water, and don't get yourself down. Don't be your own obstacle. Okay, that's the best piece of advice I can give to anyone. Don't become your own obstacle. All right, you can do it. Whatever you have set your mind to, you can do it. Otherwise it wouldn't come. There wouldn't be an idea in your mind. Okay, if you envision it, you can do it. All right, and I firmly believe this one. If you're going from a non-managerial position to a managerial position, you do have to work a little bit to gain the respect of your peers because they didn't see you before as a manager. And so that does take a little bit of time. But as we said earlier in response to a different question, try to do the social activities, get them together, and through that laughter and that camaraderie, you'll gain their respect. They'll understand you, they'll trust you, and those are the things that build confidence for a manager.
Do you have any advice for someone who is less confident to put themselves out there in an interview or in the workforce?
Yes, you have to practice. And I say meditate. When I say meditate, I don't mean like join a cult or anything, but take time before your interview, about 5-10 minutes, to just breathe and calm down. Breathe and calm down, because being anxious when you go into an interview is not going to help you at all. Okay, going like this and being like very uptight and being overly, over postured, over compensating for a slouch and stuff, that's not going to get you any brownie points with your prospective supervisor or colleague. All right, so breathe, relax, know yourself, understand, and try not to talk about the opposite of what they're asking you. Listen to the questions that they're asking you. Usually it's simple, okay? What they're asking you is a simple thing. So don't answer like the opposite because you have something in your mind, okay? Don't just stick to what you have in your mind that you want to tell them. Listen to what they're telling you so that you can give a nice, confident, related answer, okay?
We are slightly over time, but I want to get to these two questions before.
Sure.
When working in a profession that requires collaborating with colleagues, what is the best advice to grow the love in the environment with the people you're working with?
So building love is it is a challenge and it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. If you have a concept, a major value that everyone can gather around, it makes it much easier. If you have clear value systems and you express yourself clearly, it makes it much easier to build around that. Okay?
And finally, how do you transition from one workplace to another that has different work ethical standards? Are there pros and cons?
So usually, uh, the transition is manageable because you're transitioning from one work ethic that you were not great with to something that you really are great with and are passionate about. That's something that you really understand. So in those instances, there isn't really like a negative to it. It's very positive. It's life affirming. You are able to just do your work much more easily. Okay. If you're going from a workplace where you really did appreciate the work ethic and the system there and everything, and you're going into something where you're surprised by a poor work ethic, like a setup that has a poor work ethic, you can build up. So remember when we were talking earlier about managing up, you can learn to manage up. Okay. And so that becomes the key skill for you to learn.
Thank you. Do you have any last thoughts you would like to share before we close out?
I think really, guys, just stay positive. Don't make poor choices, okay? Be honest with yourself, okay? And stay positive about yourself, okay? Like understand what your own value is. A lot of people don't. A lot of people don't know their own value. Make a list for yourself, okay? Map it out for yourself. These are the things that I am fabulous at, okay? Be honest, be kind to yourself, okay? And also be honest with yourself about the things that you're not good at, okay? And see, the things that you're not good at sometimes are just things that you can take a workshop and improve. It's not always a very complicated thing, okay?
Thank you. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today, and a special thank you to Chris for such an informative presentation. For Chris's complete bio, please go to www.stjohns.edu/APD series. In the meantime, have a great rest of your day. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Stacey.